Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. But let's be real. Heartbreak isn't just for women or even humans. We've all felt the sting of rejection. But nobody, and I mean nobody, has been fumbled harder in romance than Miles Tails Prower. For decades, Sega has dangled the idea of Tails getting a love story, only to rip it away faster than Knuckles losing the Master Emerald. It's almost impressive how many times they've set him up for romance only to either completely ignore it, abandon it mid-story, or straight up crush his tiny two-tailed heart. Welcome to Tails Nexus, the place where you can almost hear the dialogue over the music! Today, I'm diving into something that surprisingly hasn't been talked about much. Tails' long, painful, and horrifically unlucky history with love interests. This poor kid has been through the ringer, and Sega has made sure he never truly wins. Whether it's the games, cartoons, comics, or spin-offs, I'll be covering every serious attempt at giving Tails a romance. If it existed, it's on the table. Now, for those of you who know your Sonic lore inside and out, you already know where this is going. You know that I have no choice but to delve into the Archie comics. Look, I actually have nothing against the comics themselves, more specifically just one particular guy involved with them. We'll get to that later. For now, it's time to see if Tails' love life is a tragic comedy or a full-blown Shakespearean disaster. Spoiler alert, it's both. Now again, I'm certain Die-Hard fans saw this one coming, but let's be real, you Die-Hard fans are going to see a lot of these coming. However, to my knowledge, Fiona Fox is the first officially catalogued entry in the long, tragic list of Tails' love interests. And before we get into that mess, let's take a moment to talk about who Fiona actually is. Fiona Fox was not dealt a great hand at life. As a kid, she was abandoned by Sonic and the Freedom Fighters, no less, and left to rot in one of Robotnik's nightmare-fueled prison cells. Her childhood? Absolute misery. Loss and torment were basically the only thing she ever knew, until somehow, some way, she managed to escape on her own. After that, she carved out a life for herself as a treasure hunter and criminal, but eventually tried to turn things around by joining the Freedom Fighters. After Sonic was presumed dead. Convenient timing. Now, where does Tails come in? Well, he technically fell for Fiona before he even met her. On one of his solo adventures, he encountered a robotic duplicate of her, and bless his little heart, he developed a crush. And because Archie Comics hates Tails, this innocent first love ended with him nearly drowning after Robo Fiona betrayed him. And yet, despite all of that, Tails believed the feelings were real. So when the real Fiona eventually showed up to join the Freedom Fighters, his tiny 11-year-old heart was already won over. And here's where the problem starts. Because Fiona, she's 16. And Tails, he's 11. Man, Archie was weird. But that didn't stop Tails from trying. He worked tirelessly to rekindle a love that never even existed in the first place, all in hopes of finally finding a kindred spirit, another fox he could connect with. But this was a battle he was never going to win. A couple of issues later, we get to the moment. Issue number 155. Right off the bat, we see Tails stumble upon Fiona flirting with Sonic, and wait, hold on. If Tails is 11 in this comic, then that means Sonic is 19. Penders, my guy, you need to chill! Anyway, Tails rightfully demands an answer, and Fiona just flat out tells him she never loved him. Ugh. And then we get this panel. This devastating, soul-crushing moment where Tails outright screams at Sonic. And I can't lie, that hits hard for people like me who are firmly pro Tails vs Sonic. But man, the road to get here was so questionable. And trust me, there's plenty more to unpack, like how Tails also walked in on Fiona and Scourge. But honestly, just talking about this is already making me want to move on to the next instance of Sega dangling romance in front of Tails, only to slap it out of his hands. Man, I wonder how that conversation with Penders and the Archie publishers went. Oh, what an interesting panel here. Is this one of those young love tropes where the younger character has a crush, but it never works out because the love interest is older? Yeah, exactly. Just like in the movies. A tragically comical situation, you know? Ah, got it. And I see the main protagonist stepping in here, creating a faux love triangle. That's classic drama. Say, How old was Sonic again?
16! Yeah, 16, yeah,
Okay. Alright, let's not kid ourselves here. Cosmo absolutely deserves a spot in any conversation like this, and it'd be downright dishonest of me not to bring her up. When it comes to romance arcs, Cosmo's relationship with Tails is, in my opinion, a shining example of how it should be done, especially for a character like Tails, who is often overlooked in this department. What makes this arc stand out is that it wasn't shoved in your face or forced to the forefront. It was subtle, natural, and it didn't rely on awkward or unnecessary themes to make it work. It wasn't a melodramatic love story. It was, in a sense, more of a quiet, beautiful narrative about sacrifice and the bond between two characters who truly care for one another. From the very beginning, their relationship grew organically. Tails and Cosmo's connection wasn't rushed or contrived. It felt like something that developed over time, from mutual respect to genuine affection. There wasn't this sense of an overbearing love interest that you sometimes see in other stories, where the romantic subplot distracts from everything else. Instead, it felt like an integral part of Tails' personal growth, especially given his emotional vulnerability and the way he navigated the relationship. But what really makes Cosmo's arc so special, and one of the strongest in Sonic's entire history ever, is how it ended. And let's be real here, it wasn't just some sweet, happy ending like you might expect from a typical romance. No, this was painful, gut-wrenching sacrifice. Tails had to make the hardest choice in his life, one that involved letting go of the one thing he loved most. And in doing so, it showcased his maturity and sense of responsibility. It wasn't just about a love story, it was about putting someone else's well-being above your own, even at the cost of your own happiness. That moment when Tails had to say goodbye to Cosmo was a heartbreaker, but it was also a testament to the strength of their relationship. It was real, it was raw, and it was honest. And that's something we don't see enough in these kind of stories. It's one of the most impactful moments in Tails' character development and the Sonic franchise as a whole. So yeah, every aspect of Cosmo's story was executed perfectly, from the development of Tails and Cosmo's bond to the heartbreaking yet noble ending. It stands out as a romance done right. Now, let's talk about Zoe. Now, I'll be honest, she's not exactly my favorite when it comes to character design or concept, but by all definitions, she is a love interest. That being said, come on, Tails, you can do so much better. Come on, buddy, really? Zoe makes her appearance in Sonic Boom. Yes, that show. And while I don't hate her, I just don't see what all the fuss is about. In fact, Tumblr user Sonamy Misdeeds put it best when they said that Zoe is basically a spliced up hybrid version of Amy and Tails. And you know what? That hit the nail on the head. Zoe takes a little bit of Tails' sweet, innocent charm and mixes it with Amy's boldness and determination. At least in theory. But in practice, she ends up feeling a generic, nondescript love interest, with all the depth of a puddle on a dry day. Now, I'm not out here to make a hate video on Zoe, because hey, everyone's entitled to their own opinion, but personally, I just can't get behind her. She's not exactly bringing anything new to the table when it comes to Sonic's universe. And she's a bit of a missed opportunity, but hey, maybe I'm being a little harsh. What does Zoe bring to the table for Tails anyway? Well, Tails falls for her. Yep, that's basically the arc. He has a bit of a struggle trying to impress her. Classic Tails, right? The guy's trying his best to be the charming little fox we know he is, but, well, all of his attempts end up going south. He even enlists the help of his friends, but they kind of make the situation worse. Because, of course they do. Sonic's kind of the wingman who ends up knocking down the runway, and Amy's well-meaning advice is less romantic guidance and more just make it weird. In the end, Tails realizes that the best way to impress Zoe is to just be himself. It's a lesson we've all heard before, but with Tails, it feels almost like a breath of fresh air. Sure, it's a bit of a predictable arc, but at least Tails learns something about being comfortable with who he is. But here's the thing. Sonic Boom wasn't exactly known for its high art when it came to writing. It was a goofy, over-the-top take on the Sonic universe, and to be fair, it wasn't meant to be taken too seriously. So it's really hard to criticize the show's treatment of Zoe and the romance angle. After all, the show's whole vibe is more about quirky humor and tongue-in-cheek moments than deep, introspective character arcs. Still, that doesn't mean we can't acknowledge that this particular romance didn't hit the mark in the same way that, say, Cosmo did. I mean, Cosmo had layers. There was sacrifice, heartbreak, growth, and a much deeper emotional connection. Zoe's relationship with Tails, on the other hand, well, it's cute? Sure, but that's about it. And let's be real, folks. Tails deserves better. He's this brilliant, caring, and incredibly capable character who's been through so much. Yet, we get a love interest who's about as exciting as stale bread. Tails could have had someone who challenged him, helped him grow, and even matched his energy. Maybe someone who wasn't just a mashup of two other characters. But here's the real kicker. The reason Zoe's presence in Sonic Boom feels like a bit of a travesty is because after all that build-up, the show doesn't really do anything with it. They introduce her as a potential love interest for Tails, but then they just kind of forget about it. There's no follow-up, no development, no real payoff. It's like the show tossed her in as an afterthought. This is part of why Sonic Boom can't be taken at face value. It's a goofy, self-aware series designed to be more about fun and laughs and real, meaningful character arcs. So yeah, while Tails' little romance with Zoe might have been a fun side story, it was ultimately just a small, fleeting moment in a show that rarely takes anything seriously. Now, here's where I start diving into my own personal opinions, based on my understanding of things. When I was a kid, I couldn't for the life of me understand why Tails didn't have a significant other. It seemed like he should have, right? He's a smart, kind-hearted, loyal guy, and he's always got Sonic's back. He's literally the embodiment of the good sidekick. But now as a grown-ass man, seriously, I'm 24 this year, kill me now. I can confidently say that I actually think Tails is better off without a love interest for now. It just doesn't feel natural to try and force one into his storyline at this stage. I mean, really, if I had to choose a love interest for him, I'd probably go with someone like Cream the Rabbit. Hear me out. Instead of making it some big romantic affair like Fiona or Zoe, I think it would be much better to keep it more on the sweet, innocent side. Kind of like the bond Tails had with Cosmo. Cream has that caring, nurturing vibe, and she would be the perfect partner for Tails, but not in a love interest way that you might expect. Rather than a romantic arc, I'd love to see something that's more about support. Like, imagine Cream making Tails a flower crown and telling him to keep doing his best. A cute, wholesome moment like that would go a long way, you know? I can totally see them spending more time together, supporting each other through their adventures, and maybe just enjoying each other's company. The energy these two give off, honestly, I think it's a pretty good match. It doesn't have to be anything overly complicated or romantic. It can just be a beautiful, pure, supportive relationship that grows naturally. But again, Tails doesn't need a love interest to complete him. I think his character works best when he's on his own, learning and growing, focused on his goals and his friendships. If anything, giving Tails a romantic arc right now would feel rushed and forced. Instead, let him continue to develop as his own character, maybe exploring deeper relationships with friends like Knuckles or Amy, or even his own self-confidence and independence. At the end of the day, I think Tails is doing just fine. Love life aside, he's always been one of the most well-rounded, relatable characters in the Sonic universe. And throwing in a forced romance could actually diminish what makes him so special. But hey, that's enough about my thoughts. I want to know what you guys think. Do you agree with me that Tails doesn't really need a romantic interest right now? Or do you think I'm totally missing the point? I'm really curious to hear your thoughts. And hey, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit that like button and show your support. Want to see more of my content? Well, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out. I've got a whole playlist of video essays available on the channel for you to dive into. But for now, I'll catch you in the next one, whether that's in 3 days or whenever I feel like shaking up the schedule. Take care, and as always, keep flying high. Psst, hey, did you know I've got a Discord server now? You can hang out with me in the community in real time, no waiting for the next upload. The link is in the description, and I can't wait to see you there.